Welcome to Big Basket Now presents the RCB podcast.
Welcome to the RCB podcast. This Women's Premier League, we bring you a series of conversations with our women cricketers under the theme, It's Her Story. With us is the Thunder from Down Under. She is
far out.
by far the greatest cricketer that the game has produced, Ellyse Perry.
It's two things that are not true. I'm not the Thunder from Down Under. I'm not sure about the second one either, but hello.
No,
Thanks
but-
for having me.
We love the fact that you're so very modest. But Ellyse, you truly are one of the greatest that the sport has produced. How's it going with the second season of the Women's Premier League? How are you enjoying the league?
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's been great. I think like last year it was probably a little rushed because that was straight at the end of a T20 World Cup that lots of girls that were playing in. There was probably not a lot of time between the competition being announced to start and then things having to be organised. Whereas I feel like this year we've had a really settled group now for a year. Lots of opportunity to, I guess, lay down a platform for the team to grow off. And we're at home, which is really nice, with a great headquarters here. And team just feels really settled, which is awesome. Selfishly, I'm playing with two of my best mates in the world, in Sophie Molyneux and Georgia Wareham, who I spent a lot of time with back home. Sophie and I live together, so it's been really fun.
Let's talk about you playing at home. It means so much for the fans. Representing RCB and playing at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, what's that experience been like?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, it's been completely unique in terms of an experience. Like, I've never played consistently in front of a crowd like that. I think, we've had matches come thick and fast, and every night, we've had a full stadium of fans who are just like so passionate and supportive of the team. So that's been incredible. And even just the bus ride in along the streets, people will line the streets and cheer for the bus and wave and say hello. So yeah, it's been amazing.
It's a real experience, I'm sure.
Definitely.
बस यही बोलना है यही तुम्हारा ऐड
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार Now delivering in 10 minutes.
Let's go back to 2010. I want to take you back to the T20 World Cup. Australia are playing New Zealand. Last ball, 5 runs required for New Zealand to win the game. Sophie Devine is batting on the other end. You're bowling and you bowl the delivery. What happens after that? Complete the story for us.
I bowled a bit of a half volley, which Soph hit pretty strongly. And I just, it was sort of went straight back past me, and I managed to stick a foot out, and it fortunately hit my foot and went for 1 run in the end, which it was an amazing game really. I think it was pretty low totals in that game. We batted first and only scored just over 100, and then managed to kind of defend the total, and I happened to have the opportunity to bowl the last over, which was really fun. I actually was running off Dirk Nannes's run up that whole game because the men's final was actually before ours, which was the game was in the West Indies, and it was when the comps were run together. So T20 Men's World Cup and Women's World Cup was at the same location at the same time, and so the men's final was actually before our game. And Australia played England in that game, and Dirk Nannes was playing for Australia at the time. And for whatever reason, I got my run up mixed up with Dirk's, and Dirk's is like probably another 10 meters longer than mine. So I was running in this whole game thinking, oh my gosh, this is a long way to the pitch, and I just went with it. It felt so strange, but I was pretty exhausted by the end of that game, and I think it had to do with the fact that I ran a lot further than usual. And I'm a bit shorter than Dirk too, so it took me a few more steps than probably it took him. So I actually remember that more about the game than anything else, just running off Dirk Nannes's run up. But yeah, it was great. It was the first World Cup I was a part of that we actually won. And so that was, it's hard to replace like that first ever feeling of something. It was a while ago now, but it was pretty special.
Your football skills certainly came in handy. But do you ever banter with Sophie Devine about that incident?
No, not really, actually. I think The only other time it comes up is if like something happens in training or a match where someone sticks a foot out and the ball hits it, and if there's really any Kiwi around from that era, they'd probably grown a little bit. I remember playing some T20 cricket with the Sydney Sixers with Sarah McGlashan, and she was in that team as well. And I think we were at training one day and a ball got bowled, and sort of a similar thing, and I just like stuck my foot out, and she just was like kind of groaned and said, "Oh, that's PTSD," and I'd kind of forgotten about it. But yeah, besides that, no, we don't talk about it. I guess like, yeah, those moments are great that you share with your team, but I suppose the respect that we all have for one another, and like knowing so well, and playing with her in franchise cricket in multiple teams, like, I don't know, it doesn't come into the equation of our friendship. So yeah, I haven't really spoken to her about it.
Right. You are recognized as one of the most remarkable athletes from Australia. Along with a whole lot of accolades comes a whole lot of fame. Yet you managed to keep your life a little private. Is that a purpose choice that you put out? And how exactly did you land there, Ellyse?
You're asking some tough questions. I don't really think, again, that, I mean, it's just a construct, really. As I said, like I love playing sport, and I've been fortunate enough to do it as a career. And I guess that's, you know, on some level because I'm capable of doing that, and it's a really nice thing to, I guess, on a superficial level feel. But in terms of who I actually am as a person, and where I come from, like, I'm just my mum and dad's daughter, and my brother's sister, and my friend's friend. So that's really all that really kind of matters to me, and we're all on the same level. So I guess that's where like the greatest fulfillment in life comes from, not from kind of like trying to superficially make yourself feel good about how good you are at something, because I think that crumbles pretty quickly, particularly in cricket. Like, you can be good one game and then horrific the next, and there's not much difference between that. So yeah, I guess it's just not something that's ever interested me.
But is that something that you learned along the way through some trials and errors? Now, when you look back at how you were when you started your career, do you feel there's been so much of an evolvement to Ellyse Perry? Like, you've evolved with times.
Yeah, we all do. Definitely. Kind of like you kind of think about when you start your career in anything, you're probably young and a bit naive in a really great way, and that helps get you through in a way, because you just go in so wide-eyed and open to trying everything. And then as things evolve, like, that changes, and you probably gain a bit more knowledge and get a bit more understanding of your craft. But then with that comes expectation and a bit of responsibility to try and like be consistent and replicate that. And and then there probably comes a point where what you've done for a while that's working, you probably need to evolve that again. And I think the human psyche is pretty in tune with not wanting to change too much, especially if something's been successful. So then I guess working through that and trying to find a way to keep growing and learning is a challenge for all of us, no matter what pursuit you're in. So I've loved that in terms of being around and playing for I guess 15 or 16 years now. You sort of go through that, and so you do grow as a person as well as an athlete. Yeah, so there's been lots of little lessons along the way, nothing substantial or like massive at one point in time, just enough to kind of keep growing and evolving. And you do change like what you believe in a little bit, and how you see the world, but I think in a good way, and for different reasons, I guess.
Right.
बस यही बोलना है, यही तुम्हारा ऐड?
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार. Now delivering in 10 minutes.
What keeps you centered, Ellyse Perry? Do you meditate? Do you just hit track and field to feel centered and to feel calm at times? Or do you just hit the gym?
Probably all of those things for different reasons. And then also I think part of it is just, and people talk about this a lot, just like finding other avenues and pursuits in life that give you the same sense of fulfillment or make you feel calm. Yeah, in a lot of ways, actually, just batting for me is quite
Therapeutic. in a
yeah,
way.
meditative. Like, it's probably the one place, just standing in the nets or out in the middle where you don't really think of a lot else. Well, I find I don't, or if I do, they're just natural thoughts and not forced or contrived thoughts. And so I really like that aspect of playing cricket. It's nice to kind of have that haven away from cricket. Like, I love reading. I definitely love exercising. I love kind of like learning new ways of training or things that might help me, perform better. Talking to different people in different fields. And I just love being by the ocean as well. Sort of lucky that back home there's lots of beaches surrounding us, so I kind of try and like escape there as much as I can. What else? I got like a couple of little nephews now. My brother's got 2 young boys and they're just amazing. So hanging out with them and my parents and stuff is cool too.
Your dad was a math teacher and your mum a general practitioner. So how exactly did the sports bug bite you?
They both play sport still, not professionally, but it was a huge part of their lives. Growing up, Dad played a lot of cricket, played squash as well, actually, and Mum was heavily into swimming. So I think as kids, like I've got an older brother, and that was part of our childhood. Dad would take us out to the backyard or the local park to teach us how to throw and kick and catch, and Mum would always take us down to the pool or for a run or something. So, it was just a pretty natural part of our family life.
That's beautiful. You were 16 when you made your debut for Australian cricket. At that point of time, most of the teenagers are probably wondering and contemplating what they want to do in life. How did you feel when you were at that juncture playing cricket, 16, representing the country?
I think I was probably the same as any other teenager. I guess like chatting before around like an evolution of like what happens when you kind of step into something. Like at that age, I was just really young and naive and had my eyes wide open and really excited for anything. And I guess that's just what happened. Like I just stepped into it. I was really, really fortunate to get the call. Like it was just great timing on, for me in terms of there was a spot available and what I had to offer at the time from a skill set, and then a couple of people deciding it was worth the gamble. So then from that point on, I just kind of made the most of it. Really enjoyed the girls' company. Absolutely loved the experience of going on tour and playing senior international cricket. And I guess from that point on, it was just made up for me in my own mind. Like I didn't even have to think about it. It was just, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And I'd try and do the absolute most to do it as much as I possibly could.
13 days after you made your debut with cricket for Australia, you go on to represent Australian football. Now, how exactly did that happen?
It's not really, I don't know. There's the answer to that. But I was just I was playing both sports and kind of roughly at the same level for both sports the whole way through my childhood. And it was just, like I said, timing's a funny thing. Like the timing of getting picked in teams is amazing sometimes how that works out, not just for me, but for lots of people. And it was just how it worked out. So I got home and went away again, and I was pretty stoked. So I didn't have to go to school. But other than that, it's actually there's no real explainables to it. It's just how it worked.
At 16, you're playing the highest level of competition in football and cricket, but you had to choose one sport. That must have been so difficult. And sometimes do you think what would have happened if I had chosen football over cricket?
No, I definitely don't think about that. And I don't really think it was a choice in the end. I guess in many respects, it just was a natural kind of flow into playing one sport full time. The way that things evolved, cricket and football started going a lot more professional for women, and there was more and more time demands. And then back home in Australia, cricket brought out full-time playing contracts, and it sort of meant the opportunity to play football was less and less, and so naturally I just kind of ended up in cricket, and I think it was a really great thing. Meant that the sports were growing, and there was more opportunity for everyone. So it wasn't hard. It's just how it panned out, really.
You've traveled around the world, so the fact that Australia is such an outdoorsy place and it's so centered around sports. Did that help a whole lot?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just a huge part of our lifestyle, but it's something I really value. I think it makes me feel well. Like I would struggle to kind of be indoors a lot, and I always kind of daydream about what it'd be like to have an office job. And one of the many reasons I feel very grateful to play sport for a living. But yeah, even then, I think people get up early in Australia and get out and do something. Often got enough daylight to do something later in the afternoon when you knock off for work. So there's always opportunities to do things, and I think it's a social endeavour too. Like you always go outdoors with your mates and do something active. So yeah, I really love that part of it. And then I like traveling wise, like it's so nice when you're away to get out and see the place that you're staying in and kind of immerse yourself in the local kind of vibe or culture a bit. So just being able to do that, and often like sport or activity brings people together like that. So it's a nice way to kind of experience things.
I think you'd be Employee of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year, and still manage to play sports. You're pretty much doing it all. You're living the dream per se. But of course, there's a whole lot of hard work that goes into it. Ellyse, you've been part of the T20 World Cup winning squad, the 50-over World Cup winning squad. You've been part of the winning team of the Ashes as well. Is there anything left to conquer when it comes to cricket?
Heaps. I don't think you can conquer cricket. I don't know. I guess like I don't really I've never laid down like a set of tournaments or competitions to win. For some reason, I think cricket feels a whole lot bigger than that to me. Don't get me wrong, like every time you're successful in a World Cup and that sense of euphoria or winning an Ashes is phenomenal. But I guess like pinning all your aspirations on a trophy is like a really hard thing, because so much of that is out of your control. You're one very small cog in a whole lot of things that need to go right for the team to be successful. But like the magic in that is like, I guess like when you all find this level where you're working together and like it's almost like what each other's doing, you know how the game's going to pan out for one another before it even happens. Like I guess that's the thing that is even more enjoyable to chase.
You scored a football goal playing in the FIFA World Cup, and there's a footage of you scoring this goal against Sweden, hitting that left footer that went viral. What do you remember from that?
Not a lot. Yeah, we lost that game actually. I remember that very strongly. It was quarterfinal of the World Cup. I think we lost 3-1. Yeah, again, it's kind of like those moments that just fall sometimes your way, and kind of ended up in space, and it came off my boot. I still actually couldn't tell you 100% whether I was shooting or crossing. I think I was kind of halfway in between, and it just happened to go in. And that's probably all I really think about from that.
You just make it sound easy.
No, it wasn't easy. It was a fluke.
No, but there's so much of hard work that goes into it, but you always stay grounded and humble, to say the least, Ellyse. Is there an athlete that you draw a lot of motivation from?
Growing up, I watched a lot of swimming, which, back home, like it is quite a big sport, and we've had wonderful swimmers over a number of years and really successful Olympians. So I used to love a swimmer called Susie O'Neill. She used to swim butterfly. And I used to watch her because my parents watched swimming and mum loved her. And so I've always really admired her. Yeah, like other athletes, I think definitely like you can kind of, there's things that all athletes bring that are really unique and inspirational in many respects, or kind of give you motivation or ideas around like, oh wow, like the way they did that just looks so natural to them, or gosh, they're really good at that, or whatever. I think I probably look at it more like that than anything else. But yeah, Susie O'Neill as a kid definitely is someone that, and I've sort of been fortunate enough to become friends with her as I've got older, and it's just like really cool to kind of have that connection from my childhood to now, like being friends with someone that I just thought was so amazing when she was younger.
Is there anything that you've been eyeing on that you would want to, say, pursue?
Oh, like as another
Off the
career.
field, completely away from sports, maybe?
That's a great question. Yeah, I guess like it's probably like a really weird one, but not weird, but just like at some point I'd love to be a mum, but like that feels like a distant future in at the moment, and an incredibly hard one. I think most women that have kids are absolutely superhuman, so I could think that would be a huge challenge at some point, which I'd love to take on. But yeah, besides that, like I don't really know. I'm kind of like going with the flow of it as well.
I'm sure you're going to ace at being a mom as well, even though it's the toughest job in the world.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think you'll do just fine with that as well. When you're on tour, you're going to the hotel, there's practice, and then the matches. You hardly get time to probably indulge with local culture as much as you would like to. But what are your fondest memories of hanging out with your teammates, having a good time when you have gone to different countries as part of your cricketing tours?
Yeah. Well, here with the girls, I love learning random words in Hindi.
Yeah, you speak so much of Hindi
No,
now.
I don't. I just say random words and hope they stick. Smitty and I have like got a bit of a masala chai club going, so she's sort of teaching me the appropriate times to drink it, because I tend to just like have 10 cups a day, and I'm like apparently not doing it right.
That's too much, even for an Indian.
Yeah, apparently. Oopsies. I'm just trying to think. Oh, well, I've got made to dance on camera the other day, which is pretty horrific. But that was sort of more Bollywood steps, so that was somewhat cultural. I guess, like, yeah, when you're traveling around, you just try and, like, pick up bits and pieces of the local culture. Definitely going to cafes anywhere around the world. Like, I think if you go and sit in a cafe at a local place and just kind of take in what's going on, you get a bit of a sense of the vibe where you are, because everywhere's different in that respect. But yeah, just the usual things really.
बस यही बोलना है, यही तुम्हारा ऐड?
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार. Now delivering in 10 minutes.
Meg Lanning took a little time off where she went on to work at a coffee shop. You know, just go on to do simple things. Is
Yeah.
that something that you resonate with?
Oh, I'm really glad Meg did that. I think she really enjoyed her time kind of doing that. Not really. I mean, it maybe in some ways, like one of the things I'd love to do in the future is have a bit of like property out in the country with a bit more space and a bit more fresh air and that kind of things. And I suppose that's a more simple life, but no, not really. I think I haven't really pined for washing dishes in a coffee shop just yet, but maybe at some point.
Yeah, but fame, money, there is a whole lot of adulation that comes with it as well, and it requires a certain amount of maturity to handle it all. How have you gone about handling it in your career, Ellyse?
I wouldn't say either of those things are really actual descriptors of what I have at all. So I'd look, I guess, like, you know, when there's cameras around at a training or at a game and people ask you questions, and then you know it ends up on the news at night or in a newspaper, you can think that you're famous, but really it's just a fleeting moment, and it just happens to be your face that day, but really it's of little consequence to who you are as a person day in and day out, and who you are when you relate to people in real life, I guess.
What advice would you give a younger Ellyse Perry?
I like this question, because I think in so many respects there's not really any advice I would give my younger self, because you know at any given point in time you are who you are for a reason, and you probably don't learn, or you're not open to learning the things that you learn after that point, save for the experiences that you've had at that moment. So you know, who I was at 16 is really different to who I am now, but like there's probably a reason why I've ended up here because of that. So there's not too much I'd say to myself. I just like me to be me.
When you take a look at your career, Ellyse, what do you feel has been the toughest challenge thrown at you, and how you dealt with it and came out strong?
I don't necessarily know. I think like there's lots of like things that are undefinable, but you know, there's points on tours where you feel really low, or like exhausted, or you're just frustrated, or you just get like agitated by things that you wouldn't normally, and like trying to figure out those reasons why, or like kind of work through that, and and then when things don't go your way, whether it's form or selection or things like that, like, and just kind of working through that and being able to like sit and accept that you don't feel great at that point in time, or things aren't going your way, but that like nothing's permanent. I guess like that's the biggest challenge, just keeping perspective at all times, because it can be pretty consuming. So for me, it's kind of like, I've been really lucky. I've had a couple of injuries, but same thing, like injuries is probably opportunity too, because you've actually got a consolidated time to get better at, not just you fix your injury, but also you just get better at being an athlete. So all those things are kind of like things you got to deal with, and some are more impactful than others, but at the end of the day, like, you get through it. Nothing's permanent.
Will it be very evident when Ellyse Perry is not really feeling it, and when she's angry, she has a lot going on her mind? Do you end up, does it become very clear? I don't know. Do you end up throwing your bat and things like that? Or do you usually stay to yourself?
I think I'm pretty introverted. I've probably only really ever thrown my bat in the nets with Dad back home when no one else is there, and I'm not proud of that. And poor Dad, it's like the closer you are to someone, the more they see all your warts. But I think at times, like, we perceptively, like, especially when you're on tour with people like most of the year, you can pick up when people are not like totally vibing, or like, just a little bit off center. But maybe this is not the right thing to say, but I'm okay with feeling like that. Like, as I said, I don't feel like anything's permanent, and as long as you're still being good to other people, and like, if you're just a bit down or a bit off, that's okay. You get through it. It's normally how I feel about that. So,
right, it's totally okay to feel frustrated at times, and it's even more okay to vent it out and have that moment, and then get back to feeling who you are.
Well, everyone's got their release. Like, some are different to others, but I don't have that many good cricket bats, so I don't really throw them that much, because I probably still need them.
But do you end up listening to music, going for a run, just batting for a bit? How exactly do you find that release?
All of those things, just depending on what point of time it is and what's available. I definitely think in the nets, like, talking about cricket, like, you can have the most frustrating net session, but often if you just push through for a little bit longer, another 10 balls, another 20 balls, like, at some point there's like a breakthrough moment, like an aha, and that changes everything, and then you find some rhythm and some flow and some fluency, and all of a sudden you feel a bit like back together again. And I guess it's just like pushing through that, no matter how many times you throw your bat, or you swear, or you get frustrated. I think there's always like, just push a little bit further, and you'll find the outcome.
The WPL, when it first started out as a concept and you knew that you were part of the Bangalore team, how exactly did that excite you, Ellyse?
Oh, like, over the moon, I think. I don't think anyone would probably say, especially at the time, like, where they were wishing to go, because it was such a lottery. But I feel like everyone was like, RCB would be the best place to go. So I was a bit bewildered and like shell-shocked when I ended up getting picked up by RCB. It was amazing. It's probably the one team that I really knew in the IPL, and kind of like seen a bit, because funnily enough, the story I do remember is Ellyse Healy and I and a number of other New South Wales under-19 girls were actually at the first ever IPL match at Shinnaswamy in the crowd when they played KKR. And
this was 2008.
Yeah, and Brendan McCullum hit 150 odd in that game. But I was at the ground here in Bangalore, and in the stands, and it was amazing. So probably from then on, I'd always been aware of RCB.
From the first year to now, you've been part of the growth story for the Royal Challengers Bangalore with the WPL. How do you see the girls getting along, and how do you see the team forming a beast in its own nature?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, just to digress quickly, like, standing on the field the last couple of nights and like looking into the stadium and seeing a full house, and like remembering that I'd sat in that stadium watching a men's game, how many 16 years ago. It's just crazy because like never would I have thought sitting in the stands, like looking down on that match, that people would be doing exactly the same thing for a women's game. So like that part of it is just phenomenal. And then like, yeah, getting to know the group of girls here and like how amazing they are. They're all so lovely, and like it's just such a nice group of people, but super talented, and a team that just wants to do really well. Yeah, it's been something I'll like, yeah, never forget, and part of my looking back on my career, like this moment in time has just been so special, like one that people probably find really hard to believe, I think.
Ellyse Perry, thank you so much for your time.
That's all right.
I think you've been extremely candid. At the same time, you mentioned a lot of things that can be a source of inspiration and motivation for a lot of folks who will be watching this podcast. So really appreciate it, and we wish you the very best. Look forward for plenty more sessions with you. This has been the RCB podcast.
Thanks.
Big Basket Now presents the RCB podcast.